Hi guys, this is Ales from Ales Gaming TV. In this video, we will talk about how to build a decent auto-attack Rune Knight for PvP. Take note that this build is just my personal take on how at least a proper Rune Knight should be built to enjoy most of the PvP contents, but this doesn't mean that this is the best build out there. So please take this video as one of your resources when creating your own Rune Knight to be a much better player than every one of us. Also, I'm really sorry to disappoint you, but this F2P build will not and never be able to wipe out those mid-spenders and whales, so don't expect too much. But what I can assure you is that you'll be able to use this build to enjoy playing with other F2P players or with your low-spender friends. This build will also give you a chance to fight alongside the whales by acting like a utility or tanky assassin by tanking some of the damage and trying to pick off those squishy supports or backlands. So before we begin, please like and subscribe to our channel for us to reach more Ragnarok Origin players who need guidance on their journey, and also to help the YouTube algorithm suggest our videos to more MMORPG players out there. So enough chit-chat, and let's jump right into the video. Auto-attack Rune Knight is one of the best DPS for PvP right now in Ragnarok Origin, since this class is a combination of brute force and a tremendous amount of survivability. So having at least one will be a good choice if you want to build a PvP team for different PvP contents. So first, we're going to talk about stats. For this build, it's best to max out your vitality since your main goal here is to be as tanky as possible. Don't worry, you will still deal damage with this build since Rune Knight has this innate ability to produce a decent amount of damage by just using your skills. Also, staying alive is much more important than having a huge attack because, chances are, you will not even be able to deal a single hit to your opponents because they can just burst you before you can come close to them when you're using a glass cannon build. So the next stat to prioritize is agility. You should always have at least a sufficient amount of agility to reach 500% attack speed in Dragon Scion form, since your main damage will depend on your attack speed. Then after that, you can pump some luck for a higher critical rate and resist or balance out your remaining stats to strength, int, and luck to have more damage and defensive capabilities. Next are the weapon, armor, shield, accessory sets, and costumes. For weapons, you can use the elemental sword since this is your main source of DPS. Using this weapon will allow you to deal a lot of damage to your opponents, even if you have 0 allocated stats and strength. And for the armor set, I suggest going set for more HP, elemental and critical resistance, VIT stats, damage reduction, and additional healing. This armor will really be a big factor in helping you survive longer and stand your ground against multiple opponents. For the shield, it's best to use Valkyrja's shield for all-around defensive purposes, but if you really need some crit resistance, then you can use Cracked Buckler or Thorny Buckler. For the accessory set, it's best to use Dark Knight or Sid Deliphus set since the main goal for this build to be effective is to be tanky but still deal a decent amount of damage. That's why we will still choose offensive accessories to still have a good damage output. Next will be the costume. For the headwear, we recommend using White Lily as it gives a good amount of damage increase as well as a reduction to medium size. Also, the 20% damage increase will really help a lot to pump up our damage. However, if you plan to get a little bit more tanky, then the Cherry Cream Dough will give you better defensive capability. For the facewear, you can use Luna Glyph since it gives additional HP, and having another stack of increased agility on top of the increased agility that your priest can give will work wonders since it provides not just additional stats but also move speed that will help you chase or retreat in different situations. But if you have some extra nines, then getting the new Christmas box will really increase your defensive capability. For the mouthwear, you can use Dorum Pipe if you were able to get one since it gives a well-rounded stat, or a gray mask since it is more like an upgraded version of Dorum Pipe. But if you want to have some extra healing ability, then you can use a Heart Card as well. For the backwear, it's best to use Horn Bunny for additional melee physical damage and damage reduction. This will also give you a chance to gain an Ignore defense plus 10% that will be beneficial when dealing with those tanky targets. Lastly, for the costume, you can use Desert Boy for more damage reduction and additional damage to neutral enemies, or Floral Elf if you need that additional ability to heal you for 10% of your max HP. But if you need a little bit of move speed, then you can use Poetry of Snow since it also gives additional damage to demi-humans while having well-balanced stats. Next will be skills. For the first job skill, you can get level 10 Bash, level 7 Magnum Break, level 5 Fatal Blow, level 10 Provoke, level 10 Increase Recuperative Power, and level 10 Sword Mastery. For the second job skill, you can get Riding level 1, Cavalier Mastery level 5, Charge Attack level 1, Sword Quicken level 5, Sturdy Strike level 5, Lion Roar level 10, and Major Tenacity level 10. For the trans second job skills, you can get level 5 Head Crush, level 10 Joint Beat, level 5 Aura Blade, level 5 Tension Relax, level 5 Berserk, and level 1 Parry for its passive effect. Take note that the passive effect of parry works even when using different weapon types. Lastly, for the third job skill, you can get Dragon Training level 1, Dragon Scion level 1, Enchant Blade level 10, Ignition Break level 10, Dragon Breath Fire level 5, Dragon Howling level 5, Dragon Breath Water level 3, Full Throttle level 1, and level 1 of each rune skill. Alright, so next will be cards. For the weapon, it's best to use a combination of size and race for more damage multipliers, but if you want to apply some negative debuffs, then using a Magnolia card will be a good choice since applying a curse to the enemy will lower their move speed and equipment physical attack. It will also reduce their luck stats to 0, so their critical rate and resistance will significantly drop. For the armor, you can use the Pisana card if you're dealing with a lot of fire damage or the Argiope card when against the Thief class. Mark card will also be a good choice to avoid getting frozen, or if you want to, you can also go debuff cards such as Majorus, Dark Frame, Creamy Fear, or Sasquatch. For the shield, you can use the Raw Frog since players are considered demi-human, so a 15% reduction will help a lot to your survivability. You can also use Horn card if you're dealing with physical range attackers or even turfing since players are medium size. For the shoes, you can use Sohi card for HP increase, DL Illusion card to auto-cast a Meteor Storm and have a very small chance to stun your attacker, Alarm card for more VIT stats and an auto-cast Psytrasher to disrupt the position of your enemies, or Time Guardian card to apply a curse. Also, a Nightmare Mimic card will be a good choice if you have a permanent party that has a priest for more healing taken. For the cloak, it's best to use Raedric card for a ton of neutral damage resistance, but you can also use Jack card if you're not using Pisana card or Eclipse card for straight up HP increase. Next will be the headwear. For this one, you can use any of the debuff status resist cards depending on your opponents, but if you still need a bit more fire resistance and a little bit more vitality stats, then Lib Almai will also be a good choice. For the facewear, mouthwear, backwear, and costume cards, just use what you currently have or prioritize getting cards that affect HP increase, damage increase or reduction to medium size, magic damage or physical damage reduction, or PvP stats. Lastly, for the accessory cards, I highly suggest using Bongun card since this card synergizes very well with auto attack Rune Knight, and auto casting Bash will give you the ability to stun the enemies, which will be a huge help for your team. But if you want to mix and match or be versatile, then you can also use the Smoky card to have hiding skill, Harong if there are enemies that use invisibility, Osiris Illusion card for an emergency auto-resurrect, Owl Baron Illusion card for a chance to deal double damage, or even Ether Orc Archer card if you have one, for more damage output. Alright, so next will be Verus cores. For the novice effects, it's best to prioritize momentum for you to easily achieve 500% attack speed even with shield. Then Muscle Block, Crisis Resistance for defensive purposes or Omni Chip, Core Overload, Mana Length Reversal, and Cold Blood for straight up damage increase. You can also choose Holy Light Shield for a much more well-rounded effect. For the expert effects, you should get Dauntless Order, Divine Empowerment, Accurate Bash, Charge Attack, and Furious Attack for straight up damage increase or Swift Mend for more survivability. Also, Powerful Boost module will be a good choice since it will allow you to stun multiple enemies at once when using a charge attack. Next will be Feathers. As of now, what I highly suggest is for you to use Raven's Hour to take advantage of the high offensive stat multiplier. You can use Sky, Day, Time, Space, and Valor Feathers to get a good amount of strength, ignore defense, and PvP damage bonus. Take note that we will still use Time Feather even if it's for PvE since our main goal here is to get more ignored defense stats and the Raven's Hour set effect. This is an F2P build, so I will not be able to suggest using Light and Dark Feather here because we will not be able to afford it. I will also not recommend the Order Feather since you will lose a ton of strength if we get rid of the Valor Feather. This build is a tanky one, but we still need some DPS to be able to kill those squishy targets. So for the defensive feathers, I'm using Raven's Hour as well, to get more multiplier, but what I will suggest is for you to use Terra Feather instead of Night Feather, since the extra HP from Terra Feather will be a good addition to your defensive stat compared to what Night Feather can give. Also, this will be a good place to use light and dark feathers, so I suggest you evenly scatter them in your defensive feather slot. Always keep in mind that this is a long-term investment, and putting all your light and dark feathers in one defensive slot just to have a higher tier will not be a good option, since every time you upgrade your feather, the upgrade cost will also increase. Next will be medals and statues. This one is pretty self-explanatory. Just get the ones that affect PvP damage and reduction, physical attack, physical damage increase, ignore def, raw stats such as strength, luck, int, dex, vit, and damage increase and reduction to a specific target such as racial, size, and elemental. Take note that defensive stats are a must here in medals and statues, so never go for attack-only stats. Instead, try to get everything, even those parts that have magic attack stats but have additional HP. Next will be enchantments. Right now, I'm still trying to get all the enchants I need, but this will be my ideal plan for my enchants. For the weapon and accessories, you should aim to get melee boons, since this will greatly increase your DPS output. Having an additional melee physical damage bonus will be a good addition to your kit, since all of your attacks, including your auto-casted skill, are considered melee damage. For your armor, cloak, and shoes, you can get vitality boost for overall defense, since having a ton of HP will be a much more well-rounded stat compared to anti-physical or magical damage. However, if you think that you still need some reduction to those attacks, then feel free to use anti-physical or magical damage to have much more reduction. Counter crit will also be a good choice, but it is a little bit too focused on a single class, so if you are planning to dive into the middle of the clash where random classes will attack you, then I suggest you choose the enchants that will boost your overall performance. For the shield, you can choose resistance boost for a little bit of resistance to negative debuffs, or you can get an additional damage reduction or critical resist depending on your playstyle. For the backwear, headwear, and costume, it's best to use PvP technique. I'm aware that you don't need any explanation for that, so let's proceed to facewear and mouthwear. For this one, you can use recovery boost for more healing taken, since this will synergize well with your tankiness in team fights. This will greatly increase the amount of healing you receive, so as long as your enemies can't kill you in one hit and you have a priest or other healer that can sustain you, then this enchantment will be pretty useful. However, if you need more raw defensive stats, you can choose between improved physical defense and magical defense. Next will be sigils. For the sigils, I suggest you focus on the defensive one, because this will be a game changer for your build. Sigils will allow you to be more tanky and have more survivability, which is extremely needed for PvP. So for the passive sigils, I suggest you choose between Surging Protection, Immortal Body, Brave Heart, Deadlock Aura, Swift Breakout, and Gate of Suffering. All of those have a huge amount of PvP damage reduction, aside from Brave Heart and Deadlock Aura. I just suggested those two since using both of them will synergize well with your PvP ward and give you a second life if your HP drops to 20%. So you're free to mix and match those sigils. By the way, I only suggested purple sigils since you can easily max them out by buying a copy of them using Zenny. Next will be the job sigil. It's best to use Aura Enchantment since it will synergize well with your auto attacks, and that additional crit will also be a good addition to your offensive stats. And for the active sigils, you can use Primal since it is easy to tier up because of the Jupros reward, and having extra stats will always be a good choice. However, if you happen to have Zephyr, then this one will also be a good option since it gives a huge amount of healing and reduction that will help you survive those tough situations. Next will be the Nebula path. I know that this is already self-explanatory. However, I will still discuss the things I chose to get for you to have some idea. By the way, I didn't go full defense for this one since I still want to have those offensive traits that will help me increase my damage output. So for the first orbit, you can get level 5 Steel Body, level 5 Auriga, level 5 Scutum, level 3 Draco, and level 2 Crater as a prerequisite to Mensa and Hertus. For the second orbit, you can get level 5 Lupus, level 5 Aquilius, level 5 Eridanus, level 5 Lepus, level 5 Hertus, level 3 Mensa, and level 1 of Hydra and Hercules, just for a little bit of damage increase. For the third orbit, you can get level 1 Velpecula and Apis, level 3 Perseus, level 5 Ophiuchus, level 5 Ursa Major and Minor, and level 5 Canis Major and Minor. Lastly, for the 4th orbit, you can prioritize getting level 5 Major Tenacity, level 5 Taurus, level 5 Cancer, level 5 Pieces, and level 5 Aquarius, and it will be up to you if you want to scatter your remaining 15 points to the job-specific reduction. Take note that this is not a perfect build, and as you can see, I sacrificed the elemental damage reduction since our damage output will suffer a lot if we choose to get those elemental reductions. So we can just use elemental armor cards to have a little bit of elemental defense. But if your character already has a ton of damage without those offensive nodes, then you can ignore those offensive stats and go straight to the defensive ones. By the way, be sure to use the rune sword for the astral sign, there is no need to explain that. But just as an additional tip, when you're upgrading your astral sign, always keep an eye on the EXP bonus, because once it reaches 250,000 EXP, your next fodder will only give 0.2% EXP, and you'll lose a lot of resources. This tip might only be applicable to F2P players, so if you have a lot of spare resources, you can just max them out right away. Alright, so next will be the Nexus engine. It's best to use the 52511 setup to maximize the additional main stats like PvP damage bonus, PvP damage reduction, and max PvP ward. However, just for now, you can use 3 grid modules since you can easily tear them up, unlike those 5 grids that will take us forever to upgrade. Just be sure to prioritize PvP related stats here, such as PvP damage and reduction, max PvP ward, and PvP ward recovery. Then you can get the other substats, such as melee damage and reduction, range damage reduction, and additional max HP. For the talents, you should prioritize getting Wind Cutter plus 10, Ignition Break plus 10, and Fire Breath plus 10. Those are the talents that will significantly increase your damage output and are a must-have for our build. Then, for novice talents, you can choose anything that you might need depending on your stats. The novice talent will not give a drastic amount of stats, but it is still good to have, so I suggest you tailor it to your novice talent based on what stats your character currently needs. So that's it. To be honest, this guide is pretty tiring because we try to do our best to do a deep dive to build a decent F2P Rune Knight for PvP. So please like and subscribe to our channel so that we can help other people create their own unique build for different Ragnarok Origin contents. By the way, I will include some PvP clips at the end of this video, so be sure to watch till the end. I know that this is not a perfect build since it still has a lot of flaws. That's why you can comment down below if you think I missed some information about our discussion or if you have any suggestions for what we should tackle next. Also, always remember to play this game at your own pace, never get burned out, and always have fun. Till next time. Peace.
Yeah.